Welcome to episode 232, mate, innit? 232 of the Ben Briggs podcast. I am Ben Briggs. It is, ain't it just? It is Saturday, people. Saturday the 24th of July, 2021. And mixing it up for the intro there, Ben. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I am, thank you. I am, thank you. Passive aggressive. Yeah, I hope you're doing well out there. Let's have a little bit of water. I'm on water today, people, because it's fucking hot again. I am sweating like a fucking simile that isn't going to be completed. There we go. Bit of meta comedy for you there, people. I'm also just realised that I've got the camera opposite me. I've got this fucking shitty brick wall background, as if that's fooling anyone. Yeah, let's be honest. Like I'm really sitting in front of a brick wall, and that's not a piece of cloth, just for a background. When I eventually move, when this move eventually goes through, I'll get a decent background. And we'll start doing this properly, shall we? But I've got an orange 1988 fucking Holland shirt on, which I'm sitting on garden furniture. This is what it's come to, people. I'm sitting on yellow garden furniture with an orange brick background, and looking at the camera now, I just look like a floating fucking head in front of a microphone. Which is probably some sort of like metaphor for our constant need for attention by doing these podcasts, people. Who knows? I don't know. Anyway, that's too deep shit for me. You know what I mean? Let's get back to talking about fucking people sticking things up their assholes again, like we did last time. Let's have a little bit of... I'm on water, as I just said, people. Out of an orange cup as well. That's a nice view. Out of a pink cup, rather. It's a nice view with all the... It's orange overload here. We are, if anything, the vitamin C podcast this episode. Yeah, so... I have been watching the Olympics. I watched the opening ceremony. Well, I say I watched the opening ceremony, people. I was about to say I watched the opening ceremony. I watched quite a bit of it, but it gets fucking dull, doesn't it? There's too many countries. I know everybody gets a right to qualify. Hey man, it's the Olympics. Anyone can qualify these days. You know what I mean? If you freely associate as being an Olympian, then you can be in the Olympics. Is that it? No, you still have to qualify, people. But it just gets a bit boring, doesn't it? You know what I mean? I know the teams come out. I watch the opening ceremony. They fucking do that waving shit. They're carrying their flag, the little flag bearer at the front with their country's flag, and they're all looking proud and that. And then the commentators or whatever are trying to make it more entertaining than it is by giving you a little bit of information about the country and things like that. It would be more interesting if they gave like facts about the horrendous crimes their countries have done. That's what they ought to do, because it just gets boring. Just here's the next lot. Here's a guy on his own because he comes from a small country, but he's good at the yo-yo, so he's made it into the Olympics. I don't know. Some obscure, like, country somewhere where they're good at fucking, throwing sticks really far, so he's made it into the javelin. He does that regularly just to catch fish and feed his family. And now somehow he's made it to the Olympics. Somebody's heard about him. He's gone, I can throw a stick far. So I'll go for the javelin. Or some, obscure country somewhere is really good at the high jump because they've got loads of fucking tigers on his island, and he has to jump up into trees away from them. I don't know. It's, yeah. You can see originally with the Olympics how certain sports and that, like when the old Greeks used to do it, had a bearing on survival and things like that. But nowadays, I'm not so sure. But it got monotonous and it got tedious. And I think even the commentators themselves were saying, beginning to scratch the bottom of the barrel with the information that they could give about any sort of islands or whatever, or any people. But, they ought to do that. They ought to say the horrendous crimes that each country have committed. Here's the team from Papua New Guinea. They used to chop people's heads off. And they scoop out their brains and fucking... Here's a tribe from nowhere. They used to shrink people's heads. And here they are, carrying the flag, adorned with shrunken heads. Proud of their heritage. Here's England. They used to rule the world. Here's the UK. Here they are. That's the thing about it, isn't it? Every single country, like now, every single country has done something horrendous to a group of people. But the UK, we get it in the neck because we did it more recent than anybody else. Here's Yugoslavia. Let's not talk about that. That was only the 90s. Here's Croatia and Yugoslavia still glaring at each other as they carry those flags. just the two teams circling each other in the middle. Maybe that's how wars should be settled. Hey, man, that's how wars should be settled. That's what everybody says, don't they? They ought to get, just a football team and another football team and then settle the wars like that. Yeah, it's not going to. If anything, that's just football or any sporting activity that I have noticed is just going to exacerbate the hate between two nations. Isn't it? As we saw in the Euros, didn't we? The fallout of the Euros. If you were walking around the next day in an Italy shirt, you'd have got battered. And rightly so. Who said that? Not me. I watched a little bit of that. I've been watching a bit of the swimming. They start with the swimming, don't they? They all fucking love it, don't they? They get it, carrying a flag round, walk around the stadium, then they all want to go for a bit of a dip. So I've been watching a bit of the swimming. It's hard to get into. I don't really give a shit, really. They swim up and down. Either someone will be miles ahead or somebody won't be. Obviously, you cheer on your own nation. GB. The interesting thing I did say, he says, looking down at the notes he made, is the Russian Olympic Federation, is it? Or committee? Because loads of Russian people, they had state-sponsored doping, didn't they? Not like fucking, tranquilizers or anything, but state-sponsored doping. So they can't be Russia. So now they've come up with a thing where Russian athletes can compete, but they have to get, it seems like they have to get drugs tested every 5 minutes. Everything they consume. Somebody from the Olympic Committee is just like taking a bite. It's like they're in prison. Or somebody's put a hit out on them all. Somebody has to take a bite of their food or a drink of their water or something like that. Just hey man, Is that bottle of water in your hands? Why is it fucking blue? Why is that water bottle actually flexing? How many steroids have you got in that? Because they were all taking steroids and shit, they've got to, they're under a different name. I can't, off the top of my head, what is it? Russian. It's not going to be off the top of my head. Russian Olympic Committee, isn't it? Is that right? Yeah. Yeah, Russia was sanctioned by the Court of Arbitration for Sports after it was accused of running a state-backed doping program. So instead, the country competes under the name the Russian Olympic Committee. Which, you know, it seems, are we allowed to, are they not allowed to, not allowed to dead name them as Russia? They are now known as the Russian Olympic Committee, and those athletes have passed, you know, that's what it's got to. Instead of banning all Russian athletes and teaching Russia, you know, a lesson not to have state-sponsored fucking backing of doping within their sports, they've just changed the name. It's fucking brilliant. Oh, you couldn't make this shit up, people. Oh, dear. You couldn't make this shit up. Sorry, I got a bit carried away there. I'm going to have some water. Yeah, you couldn't make this up. So it's now the Russian Olympic... No, we have nothing to do with Russia. We are all clean athletes. Hey... Even that guy over there bench pressing a car, yes, he's just very strong. Yeah. So that's one aspect of it. How they've managed to get round that. I know. It's kind of like. You know, I've never known that to happen before. Once a country gets banned, it's like when all English teams got banned from competing in Europe because of like the hooligan situation in the 80s or whatever. They banned every team. You know, no team could compete, as far as I remember anyway. But now they've just gone, no, we are completely clean. This is a new start for Russian sport. Terrible Russian accent, by the way, there. I just want to point that out. They can get to doping them anyway, can't they? If they can fucking jab a needle into somebody and poison somebody in fucking Shrewsbury or Shropshire or wherever it was, I'm sure they can fucking sneak a couple of fucking steroids into a sandwich for them. I don't know. I don't know, people. Maybe that's just me. Maybe that's just me being crazy. Maybe. So I've been watching the swimming, which was dull. I'm quite interested in when the BMXing and the skateboarding starts. I have no idea how they're going to go about that. I imagine it's just going to be judged on tricks and shit, isn't it? It's not going to be like a course of shit they have to do or whatever. But that might be quite interesting to watch. And I don't know how that works because, like, I know a lot of BMX people and a lot of skateboarders, like professional ones, are sponsored and shit like that. So I don't know how that works with the Olympics. But then again, it's meant to be amateur sport, isn't it? But, like, you know, the top athletes or whatever are all sponsored and shit anyway, aren't they? And I'll watch the boxing. I'll watch the 100 meters final, ladies and men's. Yes. I watch both. I watch the 200s and I'll watch the 400s. I'll watch the relays. It's mainly the athletics that I watch. That's the glory, isn't it? You know, the pool thing or whatever, I can swim and stuff. You know, most people can swim and shit like that, can't they? But I have no real interest. You're just like, you know, he's doing a different sort of stroke, but he is still just going up and down, yeah? That's the way I look at the swimming in the Olympics. He's going up and down the pool backwards now. That's great. This is a great race. There's, you know, he's done that little turn where they get to the end of the pool, don't they? Now he's doing, you know, he's using both of his arms out of the water now, and he's wriggling a bit with his legs, or her legs, or their legs. Isn't it? Now he's going faster at the pool. Now he's sort of like doing breaststroke up and down the pool. Now he's doing backstroke up and down the pool. Now he's doing butterfly. Now other people are jumping in. I think this year, haven't they got a thing where it's the first thing, like a medley thing? Where men and women are on the same team. Hey, is this what it's come to? Men and women allowed in the pool together. But apparently, yeah, that's what's going to happen. So, like, and each team can pick, so they could have a man going first, a woman going first, and that sort of thing. So, they're basically there to decide at what leg of the relay that they want to lose by putting a woman into it. Oh, here we go. Naughty. No, so that might be quite good, actually, to see what strategy people use within that. But apart from that, with regards to the swimming, diving, I don't give a shit. Isn't it? It's just like, you know, it's just falling with grace, isn't it, really? You know, you just, any sport that really you just, you know, you can drop off a high place, and the way you get down is judged. And I've got no interest in that. I don't know what is a good dive or what isn't a good dive. Good dive. You know what I mean? I watched the diving in the Olympics, and somebody will jump in the pool, twirl round and shit like that, and I'm like, well, that looked good. And they're like, oh no, he missed it. He missed it. His legs weren't completely. How the fuck can you see that? If you blink, you miss it. Oh no, he had his like small toe was sticking out. I have no idea. It's like I'll watch the gymnastics, not for any pervy reason either. I don't like sit there and go, oh fucking hell yeah, the fucking gymnastics is on, lovely. How old's that one? I don't do that, but like you catch, I don't really go out of my way to watch it, but I'll have like that on in the background or something while I'm doing something else. I don't sit there like watching it, but every now and again you see it, don't you? And when they're, you know, they do a lot of running, don't they? And then spring off something, and then, you know, do a back somersault and then land, and then one will bend it, you know, either a guy or woman or whatever who's doing it, or they'll bend their back leg or something and go, oh, they've lost points there. Do they get nothing for, like, spinning around in the air and shit? Is it all based on the landing? But I watch that sort of thing, like, and the rings, and those two bars that are at different heights where they're swinging around and that, and you're watching it and you go, that looks fucking amazing. That's brilliant. And they do all that swing and then come off, and then like the way they land can fuck it completely. And I have no idea. I'm just watching it going, I have no idea whether that was good. It looked amazing to me. It looked fucking amazing. You know, the only bit is where they start pissing around with a ribbon and a ball. And I don't really see, you know, throwing a ball up in the air and then catching it. Is that really that difficult whilst you're, you know, kneeling on the ground and then getting up again and sticking your leg out? I don't know. Maybe that's just me. That's an Olympic sport, is it? They still do that thing with the ribbon, when they go around with the ribbon and, you know, like they're, like a 1970s magician's assistant. There to distract you. Well, the magician is fucking, leading in a tiger in a mirrored box so you can't see the tiger. And the next minute he opens it up and it's there. Isn't it? It just seems, It doesn't seem, that brilliant. I'm like, really? You went to the Olympics to do that? There's a lot of sports like that in the Olympics where you just think, I don't know. I'm not really that impressed. Like long jump. Wow, you can, well done, you can jump a long way. I don't see the real, thing in that. Massive run up. They do that thing, don't they? They get the audience, people in the stadium clapping, although there won't be people in the stadium. They get them all clapping, don't they? Take a big run up, jump quite far, and then they zoom in on that bit of plasticine. And it's just got one little, spike mark on it. No, sorry, mate. Not this time, Betty. All that effort you put in. That must be the most disappointing thing. When you make that jump, there's the big anticipation. You jump as far as you can, but you fall short of the world record or Olympic record. And then you look back and there's just a little spike mark in the plasticine. So you went over the board and still didn't jump as long as somebody else has jumped in the past. That must be the worst thing, I think. Competing in these events and not even breaking a record. It would be nice. And then you've got another 4 years left to wait for it. You're never going down in history. I don't know. Anyway, what are we on? Sorry, I've been going on about the Olympics quite a lot, and but I will be watching it. I will be watching and then catching every, the gymnastics and shit like that. I'm not really bothered about that, to be honest. But like some of the new sports I might watch, and then obviously the athletics. That's the main thing, innit? The athletics, really. That's what everybody's working at for. That's why they put it towards the end, innit? They start off with the swimming because people are excited about the Olympics, and they're basically like, right, I can put up with a bit of swimming for about 5-6 days, maybe. Seems to go on forever. Intersperse it with different things. But I'm really just, I'm really waiting for these people to dry off so I can watch the athletics. That's basically it, isn't it? Anyway, talking about watching things, I did see the documentary Uprising. Hey, what? I don't know why I did that just then, by the way. Trying to make it more exciting listening experience for you people, I guess. I watched the documentary Uprising, which is around the race riots. Were they riots, or was it just people standing up for their rights? Described as riots, anyway. It's on BBC iPlayer. Those of you abroad, you may not be able to get that. But it is on BBC iPlayer. It's like a multi-part documentary that talks about the sort of like catalyst of the race riots. When was it? In London mainly. And how the racial tensions within the UK at that time. I think it was the 80s, late 70s, 80s, something like that. Really, really interesting. Really, if you're a white guy like me, kind of makes you feel bad. But just really interesting how people were treated. I was born in 1977, right? And I went to quite. Hey guys, when I was younger, I had a lot of black friends, a lot of Asian friends. I went to quite a multi-ethnic school where I was. although I lived in Malton Village, I didn't go to Malton School when I was younger. I went to Western Fayville School, which was quite a multi-ethnic school because it was close to, in Northampton, the Eastern District of Northampton, which was known as sort of like the London overspill area. I don't think that's derogatory in any way. I'm sorry, I'll take a bit of water here. Yeah, so the school I went to, because a lot of people moved up from London because it was cheaper housing in Northampton, but still only an hour away from London on the train. So you could live in Northampton and commute to London if you needed to. Or a lot of families just moved up because it was cheap housing, which is mainly the Eastern District side of Northampton. A lot of cheap housing, and it was cheap housing for people moving up in London when house prices and things were going up there, like in the early 80s and late 70s. But as a backdrop to that, obviously, if you have cheaper housing, a lot of immigrants can afford to live in those areas, or usually in cheaper housing areas, people coming into a country haven't got as much money, so they're going to live in that sort of area. So there was a lot of ethnic diversity in my school, even at that point. In the 80s, when I went to, 90s really, when I went to Western Fayville School. I think I went there in 1990 and then left in 95, 96, something like that after my A-levels. But anyway, it was interesting just to get a backdrop of the sort of like divide. And it's really interesting, just a really interesting documentary, how that funneled through society. And I'd just thoroughly recommend it. If you're interested in, that sort of thing, people's rights, how people are treated, how people were treated, and where all this, hey man, all lives matter, man, the Black Lives Matter movement and things like that, where all of that, has because a lot of the things you hear about in America, that's the thing about anything race related. A lot of the things you'll see documentaries on Netflix or whatever, and it's all American, and it seems a fucking million miles away. And you can be living like in the UK and think, hey, well, I've never really noticed that bad, disparity between different races or any sort of like racial tensions or anything like that. It's easy to say that, but this is a documentary about specifically what happened in Britain, like particularly London at that time, and it's just fascinating. Really, I'm fascinated by that sort of thing. I think I was discussing with my girlfriend recently. I think I'm fascinated by it because I don't really understand it. I don't understand why people are like that. And I'm not holding my hands up going, hey, man, I'm so woke, man. I'm so fucking woke. But I don't get it. It doesn't click with me why people are like that. But it just, I don't know. I'm fascinated by sort of like social history, and particularly between sort of like different races and things like that. Because we're all, it's all about what's on the inside, man. I don't mean to be wishy-washy or anything like that, but it's a fucking good documentary series. It's fucking very eye-opening. I would thoroughly recommend watching it. I enjoyed it. If anybody from other countries are watching it, I know I get a few listeners in America and stuff. It'd be interesting for you to see sort of like the parallel things that run through our society and your society, because they are so interlinked. You know what I mean? I know, like, there's a lot of differences between the UK and America, but like, there's a lot of similarities as well. And it is that fear of the other. You know what I mean? That's all it is, isn't it? It's fear of the other. Anyway, that's that, isn't it? It was just interesting to watch. I mean, some horrendous things happened where, like there's a fire at a party and things like that, and it just like people being attacked and shit like that, and it's just, it's a real. I remember the like Brixton riots and things like that vaguely. At least I think I do. You know what I mean? Maybe it was just like, it's just stuff I've heard and I've thought, oh, I was alive when that happened, and then just connected the dots or whatever. But anyway, it's a fucking good documentary. I thoroughly recommend you watching it. That is episode 232 of the Ben Briggs podcast. If you have any questions, trials, tribulations, contact me at podcast@benbriggs.co.uk. I will be back on Tuesday, motherfuckers. Have a good rest of your weekend. And I shall speak to you then. Take care.